Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue our study of the book of Shmuel Aleph, the first book of Samuel, chapter 6. And we've been learning the lesson these last few chapters of the fallacy of faith in things. The Philistines' faith in their god Dagon, who was just an idol, and also the fallacy of the faith that the people of Israel had in the ark, as if the ark itself was going to save them when they tried to take it out to battle, and instead people died. We're going to continue on that theme as we travel through chapter 6, and as we'll see, we'll learn this lesson from several different angles. Now, the Philistines now have had this ark for a while. Vayihi Aron Adonai, this is verse 1. The ark of God was B'stei Plishtim, was in the fields of the Philistines. In other words, they had control over it for Shiva Chadashim for a total of 7 months so far. And then Vayikru Philistine, and the Philistines called out La Kohanim, to the priests, La Kosmim, and to their magicians. They called out to their wise men, Lamar, asking the following message: Ma na'aseh Aron Adonai, what should we do to this ark of God? Hodi'unu, let us know. Bamet nishalachenu limakomo, how should we send it back to its place? Now one immediately wonders, what does it mean, how send it back? Send it back? Why do you need a special way to send it back? What I'm going to postulate, and this is really, Rashi kind of hints to this. It says, how should we send it back in such a way that we know God will forgive us for whatever it is that we've been doing wrong? In other words, they initially have to understand where they're coming from. They're coming from the fact that if they have this God, because remember, they look at this object as a God, and they honored it. They put it in its temple. They did what they were supposed to with it. In their mind, they don't understand what's going on. But now they're starting to get the message that maybe there's something else that God wants from them. There's some way. Just to return it isn't obvious to them at first. Returning it itself isn't obvious, because they should be getting more protection by having it, not less. You have to understand the way an idolater thinks. So, therefore, they're asking, how do we send it back in such a way that we're not insulting it? Right? One might think that if we send away this God, that he'll be even more angry. So in other words, how do we send it back in such a way that we achieve whatever it is that this God is trying to ask us to do? Vayomru, and they said, Im mishalchim, if we were going to send et Aron Elohei Yisrael, the ark of the God of Israel. Now, some of the Mefarshim, some of the commentaries ask, notably the Malbim, what do you mean, im mishachim, if we are going to send it back? They just asked you how to send it back. Everyone wants to send it back. Well, based on the way we're explaining it, it makes sense. Im mishachim, if you're going to send it back. In other words, we don't necessarily think that sending it back is the right move. Maybe we should keep it, because maybe it will provide us more protection if we keep it. And maybe there's something else. However, they're saying, if you're going to send it back, in other words, you think that keeping the Aron is the problem, right? If this is the decision that we make, and you decide that sending it back is the solution to the problem, then what you're saying is that there's something more to it than just the magical powers of the item itself, right? There's something more. That there's something behind it. There's something more meaningful than that. And if that's the case, then al tishalchu oto reikam, do not send it empty, but rather ki hashev teshivu lo asham. You need to send it back with some sort of demonstration of your remorse. Asham is a sacrifice that's brought, or an offering that's brought to demonstrate remorse. Right? In other words, if you're taking it, that means there was something wrong with you taking it from the people of Israel. Then if this is the decision that we're making, if we're taking the non-pagan path, then Hashev teshivu lo asham, then you need to send with it some sort of offering that demonstrates you feel bad for what you did. Oz teraf'u v'nod alachem. Lama lo sasur yado mikem. Then you will be healed from your illness. And then, nodalachem literally means he will make himself known to you. What does this mean? He will make himself known to you. In other words, God, this God that you're now believing in, right? That you didn't believe in before, because now you're thinking that it's more than just the object, but there's something behind it, the object. Then you will know. You will know that he's actually punishing you because of your actions, because of your behavior, and then you will know lama lo sasurya domikem, why his hand has not been taken away from you. In other words, why he's been punishing you until now, and that the only way the punishment will stop is if you show some remorse. So vayomru meha asham asher nashivlo. What kind of offering of remorse can we give back to God to demonstrate that we feel remorse for what we did? Vayomru mispar sarnei Philistines. And the mispar, the numbers, the group of the you should give something that represents the number of the chiefdoms of the Philistines, which are Chamisha. There's 5 Philistine chiefdoms. We mentioned them before: Ashdod, Ashkelon, Aza, Gat, and Ekron. Right? Those were the 5 towns of the main towns of the Philistines. Right? There would be 5 Tichorei Zahav. Hemorrhoids of gold. Now, the little understanding, and the way most people understand this, is the form of a hemorrhoid in gold, which will demonstrate that you v'chamisha achberei zahav, and 5 golden mice. Now, apparently, and this is the first time we're hearing of this, there were mice that were ravaging the countryside, and whether or not the mice are related to this plague that they were suffering, we know that the bubonic plague, at least, was carried on by rats. Maybe the mice were carrying this disease, or maybe the mice were or ravaging the fields. Who knows? But somehow they were also involved in this ki magefa achas l'chulam u'l'sarnechem, because this magefa, this plague, has struck all of you, all 5 of you, and to all of the noblemen that lead all of these 5 chiefdoms. So it's made everyone suffer. So in other words, you need to so what should you do? Verse 5, you should make the forms of the hemorrhoids, and the forms of the mice, that destroy the land, and then you will be giving the God of Israel honor. Now, note very carefully, and then you will be giving the God of Israel honor. Now, I want to say something here that is very important. Maimonides, the Rambam, in Moreh Nevuchem, when he brings this language, when he's discussing the meaning of the word tselem. And the point, this is in the first chapter of the first part of the book, and the Rambam is talking about the meaning of the word tselem, which the Rambam defines as not a form, like we're a physical form that we're familiar with, but rather a tselem means the essence of an object, the essence of something, right? So where he's using this to explain the concept of tselem Elokim, the form of God, not to mean that a human being is somehow in the shape or form of God, because God has no shape or form, but at Tselem Elokim, because the essence of a human being is a being that has a level of intelligence, a level of free choice, a level of intellect, which is somewhat, to some tiny degree, godlike in its way, and therefore Tselem means that. And as proof, in an interesting way, the Rambam brings this pasuk, this verse here, to prove that Tselem does not mean a physical form. So what I want to point out here is that Maimonides, when he looked at this verse, he looked at it that it's obviously not talking about that they made forms of hemorrhoids and mice, but rather the Tzalmei Tichorechem, and these are the language, and I'm reading from the Rambam in the Kapach translation. He says, "V'kachani omer b'tzalmei tichorechem." When it says that they made forms of their hemorrhoids, what it means is lefisha haya haratzui mehem inyan siluk makas hatchorim lo tavnit hatchorim. The point here is not the actual form or the shape of the hemorrhoid, but the point is, what is this asham, what is this offering meant to accomplish, by meaning it's meant to accomplish taking the plague away. So tzalmei tichorechem in the Rambam's mind here means that you should make something, give an offering that demonstrates that you have learned your lesson, right? Something that demonstrates remorse. And this, a golden form, which is being given as a donation to the mizbeach, to the tabernacle, to the people of Israel, demonstrates that you understand that by stealing this ark and by and the battles that you underwent with them and the suffering you made the people go under is something that you regret, something that you are willing to now pay sacrifice for. So Vatsisem Tzalmei Techorechem then means make something that represents, right, the suffering that you underwent because of the hemorrhoids, and something that represents that you recognize the meaning of the suffering that you underwent by these mice that have hamashchitim et haaretz. And then it makes more sense according to the Maimonides reading, Unitatem l'Elohei Yisrael kavod, and what you will be doing is giving the God of Israel honor. The point here being that you're giving the God of Israel honor. Suddenly they mention Elokei Yisrael and not the Aron, not the ark. Perhaps if you do this and you give this offering, God will lighten His hand from against you, and from your God, and from your land, because they still saw God of Israel as being just one God among many. So therefore, maybe He'll have some mercy on our God, Dagon. That's what the Philistines are saying. And again, that helps us understand the next verse. V'lama techabdu et levavchem, and why should you make your hearts heavy? The emphasis here being on the remorse in the heart. These wise men of the Philistines were wiser than we realized, right? Kasher kibdu Mitzrayim ufaros libam. Don't do it just like the people of Egypt and Pharaoh back then at the time of the Exodus. They hardened their hearts. You don't be like them. Halo kasher italel bohem vayishalchum vayelechu. Don't we remember how God made a mockery of the Egyptians and sent the Israelites out of Egypt, and they left, right? So don't be stubborn. You have to feel remorse. There has to be a change in your heart. And that's what it means, Talmei Techorechem, as opposed to meaning the actual form of a hemorrhoid or a mouse. V'ata, and now, kechu v'asu agalo chadasha. This is what you're going to do to fix this problem. You're going to take a new agala, a new carriage, echas, one carriage, ushtei faros olos, and two cows that are nursing. Asher lo Allah alehem ol, cows that have not been used for work. So they're not experienced. They don't know the paths and the roads, right? And they haven't been used before to pull carriages. So when we're going to use them to pull the carriage, we'll see soon, whatever place they go with it will be random, right? Or seemingly random, or could be random, right? And so asartem et haparos ba'agala, and you should strap the cows to the carriage, v'hashevotem b'nehem me'achreim habayisa, and then take the calves, the children that they have just given birth to, that they are nursing, to the house. So the natural inclination of the cows would be to go back to their calves, because they're mothers and they're going back to the babies that they're nursing. So because remember, these people, these magicians, these necromancers, these diviners, the priests of the Dagon, they are still of the mind where they don't know. They don't know if it's better to keep this our own. They don't know if it's, maybe if we want protection, we should keep it like all the other idols that we have. Or maybe we have to recognize that there's actually a God, there's something more behind this our own than just the object itself. And we have to show some remorse towards Him. And take the ark of God and put it on the carriage, and the items, the golden vessels, right? Asher hashevotem lo asham. This is again a hint that the Rambam's understanding of the pasuk, it sounds even more correct, because it says vet kilei hazahav, the vessels, just these are golden vessels. It doesn't say, but you could understand, of course, to mean the golden vessels that were described before that as hemorrhoids or mice, which wouldn't necessarily be called kalim, vessels. Vessels would be more give you the idea that they were items not just forms of mice, but they were bowls and pots and pans and the usual kinds of golden vessels that are donated to a temple. Asher shivutim lo asham, that you are returning to him, to God, right? Asham as an asham, as a offering of remorse. Tasimu argaz mitzido, you should place it in a chest next to the aron, next to the ark. V'shilachtem oso v'halach, and then you should send it off and it will go. Verse 9, Uritem, and you will see, Im derech givulo yale Beit Shemesh, if it goes towards Beit Shemesh. Beit Shemesh is a town on the way to Jerusalem, and Beit Shemesh was apparently the first Israelite town that one would encounter if he was traveling from the land of the Philistines to the land of Israel or Judea, and the first Jewish town, Judean town that you would encounter would be Beit Shemesh. So if you go towards that town, Beit Shemesh, which is on the border, then it's clear that he, meaning that God, right, has done this bad to us, and that what he wants is for us to return the ark and show some remorse. Right? But if it does not go, if the cows do not go back, if the cows do what we assume they're going to do, which is stay with their babies, v'yadanu, then we will know, ki lo yadon nagabanu. God has not been punishing us. All right? Mikrehu hayalanu. It happens by happenstance, by chance. We happen to have the ark. The ark, of course, provides protection like all other idols do. And we happen to suffer a plague for whatever reason, because plagues happen. Vayasu ha'anashim kain, and the people did as instructed. Vayikhu, and they took shtei paros alos. They took two cows that were nursing. Vayasum ba'agola, and they harnessed them to the carriage. Ve'et b'neim kolu babayis, and the children, the calves, they put inside their house, in some Philistine's house. Vayasimu et aron Adonai ha'agola, and they put the ark of God into the carriage, ve'et argaz, and the chest, ve'et achberi hazohav, ve'et tzalmei techorechem, and the golden mice, and the tzalmei, and the forms of their techorechem, the techorehem, they put into the forms of the hemorrhoids, they put into the chest. So I'm going to end here. This will be the first half of chapter 6. We're going to see what happens in our next podcast. What happened to this? What did the cows do? And what happened when the ark reached back to the people of Israel? Thank you so much for studying this together. Looking forward to studying the rest of this book of Samuel, and of course many more things together.